Late at night, in a cold alien desert, Mark sat alone inside his small camping tent. The wind outside was sharp and loud, pushing the sand like tiny knives across the ground. His heater made a soft buzzing sound, but even with it, the temperature felt like ice. He had been exploring the planet for 2 days, and this night was the coldest so far. Then he heard it. A small sound. Not the wind. Not an animal. Something else. It sounded like tiny footsteps slowly dragging across the sand, as if someone was using their last bit of strength to move forward. Mark froze. He listened again. There it was, weak, soft, and close. He unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The cold hit him instantly, biting his skin. But what he saw made him forget the freezing air. A tiny alien girl stood a few meters away, shaking hard. She looked no older than 10 human years. Her body was thin, like she had not eaten for many days. Her skin had patches of pale purple and blue from the cold. Her large glowing eyes were full of fear, and her arms hugged her small chest tightly. She was trembling so much she could barely stand. Mark took one slow step forward. "It's okay," he said softly, raising his hands. "I will not hurt you." The girl stepped back, scared. She held a small metal cube close to her chest, like it was her only protection. Her hair was covered in frost dust, and her lips were shaking too fast to speak. Mark looked around. The desert was empty, dark, and endless. No one else was out here, no ships, no lights, nothing. "You'll die out here in this cold," Mark said. "Come inside the tent. It's warm." She shook her head quickly. Her glowing eyes widened. She whispered something, her voice so weak that Mark had to lean forward to hear it. "If I go in, he will smell me. He will come." Mark frowned. "Who will come?" The girl looked into the darkness behind him. Her breath broke in fear. She did not answer. Before he could ask again, the desert suddenly went silent. The wind stopped. The sand froze mid-air for a moment, as if the whole world was holding its breath. And then a deep growl rolled across the darkness. It was low, heavy, and close. Too close. Mark felt the ground vibrate under his boots. He looked back at the girl. She was crying silently now. Her body shook, not only from the cold, but from terror. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave me outside." Mark didn't think twice. He rushed to her, wrapped his jacket around her freezing body, and pulled her toward the tent. She was so light it felt like lifting a child made of feathers. He pushed her inside and zipped the tent quickly, shutting out the freezing wind and the darkness outside. Inside, the girl collapsed beside the heater, shaking uncontrollably. Mark gave her a thermal blanket and warm water. She tried to drink, but her hands were shaking too much. Mark held the cup for her. For a moment, there was silence. Then her skin slowly began to change color, from purple to light blue to normal. Mark had never seen anything like it. He watched in surprise as glowing symbols appeared faintly on her arms, like hidden marks reacting to warmth. The girl opened her eyes fully. She looked at Mark with a strange mixture of fear and trust. "You should not have brought me in," she whispered. "Now, he knows where I am." A second later, something huge scratched the outside of the tent fabric. The entire tent shook. Mark's heart jumped. The girl covered her mouth, trying not to scream. Outside, the growl came again, louder than before. The desert night had turned into a trap, and the real danger was only beginning. The tiny alien girl sat close to the heater, her small hands pressed together as she tried to stop her shaking. Even inside the warm tent, fear still covered her face. Her glowing eyes stayed fixed on the tent door, as if she expected it to rip open any second. Mark slowly pulled out a small flashlight and checked the edges of the tent. He wanted to understand what scratched it a moment ago. The claw marks were long, too long, almost the size of a man's arm, and they had cut through 2 layers of fabric without effort. Whatever was outside was not small. He sat down across from the girl. "My name is Mark," he said gently. "What's your name?" She hesitated. She looked down at the metal cube she held tightly, then whispered, "Leary." Her voice was thin and careful, as if she was afraid even her own words could attract danger. "Leary," Mark repeated, trying to calm her. "You're safe now. No one will hurt you." But she shook her head quickly. "You don't understand," she said. "He follows my scent. He never stops. He hunts until he wins." Mark swallowed hard. "Who is he?" Leary's eyes moved to the tent wall again. "A night-stalker," she whispered. "My people fear it. My village hides every night, but it found me when I ran. Now it will not stop." She hugged her knees. The symbols on her skin glowed faintly in the heater light, brightening when she felt scared. Mark listened closely. The desert wind started again, blowing sand against the tent. But under that sound was another one. Something heavy walking in circles around them. Thump, pause, scratch, thump. Mark reached for his radio, pressed the button, and spoke into it. "Base, do you copy? I need assistance. There's something out here." Static, no response. The storm was blocking all signals. Leary shivered. "He can smell everything," she whispered. "Cold, heat, fear." She touched her chest. "He smells me." Mark didn't know what to say. He had seen dangerous alien wildlife, but nothing that hunted with this level of intelligence. And Leary was just a small girl. How could something so terrifying want her so badly? "Why is it after you?" Mark asked. Leary's breath trembled. "Because I escaped." She held the metal cube tighter. "They took many children from my world. For experiments, for tests. I ran when they opened the cages." Her eyes filled with tears. "But the night-stalker followed the smell of our fear. It ate the others." Mark felt something twist inside him. This little girl had survived something terrible. And now she was running for her life. The tent suddenly shook again, harder. A long shadow moved across the fabric. Leary covered her mouth to stop herself from crying. "He is angry," she whispered. "He hates warm places. Your tent is the only warm thing in the desert. He knows I'm inside." Mark grabbed his flare gun and checked the chamber. One shot. "Only one." "Leary," he said, "I need to know how strong this thing is. Can it break inside?" Her answer came immediately. "Yes." Mark's heart hit his ribs. He had to think fast. He looked around the tent. He had tools, lights, wires, the heater, a laser cutter, batteries. Not enough to kill a monster, but maybe enough to survive. He moved to the tent entrance quietly. Leary reached out, grabbed his sleeve, and shook her head. "Don't go out," she said in a shaking voice. "He will smell your fear, and humans smell stronger." But Mark wasn't planning on running. He needed to see what they were dealing with. He lifted a corner of the tent, flapped just a little, only a thin line, enough to peek outside. At first he saw only darkness. Then two bright eyes opened in the sand, glowing, watching. They were too high above the ground, too wide apart. The creature was big, bigger than anything Mark had seen. He dropped the tent flap. Leary was hugging herself tightly. "He doesn't get tired," she said. "He will hunt us until sunrise." Mark checked the clock. Sunrise was 6 long hours away, and the nightmare outside was only getting started. The tent was dim and warm, but Leary's fear filled the small space like cold smoke. Her glowing eyes reflected the heater light, and her fingers dug into the soft blanket as if she was trying to hold herself together. Outside, the creature's slow footsteps moved in a circle, never rushing, never leaving. It was waiting, listening, smelling. Mark sat close to Leary, trying to calm her down, even though his own heart was beating fast. "We'll survive this," he said softly. "I'll protect you." Leary shook her head. "You don't understand. My kind, we are not meant to be alone. We are weak when alone. She lifted her small hand and placed it on her chest. But we have one gift, a power, only when we trust someone. Mark frowned. What kind of power? Her glowing symbols brightened as she spoke. A shield, a barrier made of light. Strong enough to stop claws. Strong enough to stop the night-stalker. Her breath trembled. But I cannot make it alone. I need someone who trusts me, and someone I trust back. Mark looked at her for a moment, then slowly held out his hand. Then trust me. Leary stared at his hand. Her body shook harder. But not from cold this time. Fear, doubt, hope, all mixed at once. After a long moment, her small fingers touched his palm. Instantly, a soft purple light began spreading across her skin. She gasped. It's working. Only a little, but it's working. The symbols on her arms brightened, glowing brighter than before. The heater light flickered as the air around them changed. A very thin shield, almost invisible, formed, like a bubble around them, but it lasted only 3 seconds. The glow snapped and faded completely. Leary collapsed forward, breathing heavily. I'm too weak, she whispered. I have no food. No energy. I cannot make a full shield. Mark placed a hand on her back. We'll find a way. We have to. He looked around the tent again. His supplies were running low. He only had a small pack of food bars left. Leary had eaten almost nothing in days. Her body looked like it could break easily. Then something hit the tent wall. Hard. The whole tent shook like an earthquake. Tools hung on hooks fell to the ground. Mark grabbed Leary before she rolled to the side. The creature growled. It sounded closer, angrier. Leary's voice barely escaped her lips. He knows I tried to shield. He can sense it. Mark grabbed the flare gun again and loaded it. One shot. One chance. He looked at Leary. How long does the shield last when you're strong? He asked. The tent stood shaky and crooked, its fabric stretched thin, its poles bent from the creature's attacks. The heater flickered weakly, and the air inside felt heavy with fear and growing energy. Mark held his makeshift weapons tight, a metal pole, 2 flares, and a laser cutter he hoped would last long enough to matter. Across from him, Leary stood on trembling legs, but the glow from her skin was strong now. Her symbols burned like tiny purple flames. Even the air around her hummed, crackling with quiet light. Stay behind me, Mark whispered. Leary shook her head. We stand together. Before Mark could argue, the night-stalker attacked. The creature slammed into the ground right outside. The tent, the sand shivered, the poles bent inward. Leary gasped, but she didn't fall back. She raised her hands, and a faint purple shield formed around them both, thin, shaking. But there, the creature's claws ripped through the tent wall. A cold wind rushed in. 2 burning eyes stared inside. Mark swung the metal pole with all his strength. It hit the creature's snout with a loud crack. The night-stalker roared and pulled back, more annoyed than hurt. Leary, now! Mark yelled. Leary stepped forward, her tiny hands glowing bright. She spread her fingers and pushed the air forward. A purple wave burst from her palms. It hit the creature in the face, forcing it back into the sand. But the shield flickered afterward. Leary gasped. I cannot hold it long. My body is too small. The night-stalker recovered faster than either of them expected. It rose up again, taller than before, its spine glowing with red cracks of light, almost like it was becoming angrier, stronger. Mark grabbed her hand. Leary, listen. How long can your shield hold full power? She hesitated. Maybe 10 seconds. 10 seconds again, 10 seconds to survive. 10 seconds to end this. Mark took a deep breath. Then when I say run, run. Don't look back. She grabbed his shirt tightly. I won't leave you. You have to, Mark whispered. We get one chance. The night-stalker roared and lunged straight through the tent entrance, ripping the whole side of the tent away. Fabrics flew like torn leaves. The heater fell over. Sand blasted inside Dot, and then the creature leaped. Leary fired her shield. A bright dome of purple light exploded around them. Claws hit it hard. Sparks flew. The creature screamed in fury, slamming the shield again and again. The shield cracked like glass. "Leary, hold it!" Mark shouted, "I'm trying." She cried, shaking, tears forming in her glowing eyes. Mark grabbed the flare gun, aimed carefully, and fired the last flare at the creature's face. A blinding red burst. Smoke, light, heat. The night-stalker stumbled back, confused, scratching at the burning light. "Now!" Mark shouted. Liri dropped the shield and sprinted out of the broken tent, her small feet kicking up sand. Mark ran after her, grabbing her arm so she wouldn't fall. The creature roared behind them, recovering faster than expected. "Keep running." Mark shouted. The horizon was changing. A faint, soft light began touching the sand. The first warning of sunrise, Leary noticed. "Mark, the light. He hates the light." "Then head for the ridge," Mark said. They ran as fast as they could. The creature followed, shaking the ground, leaving deep claw marks in the sand. Its breath came hot and angry. It was seconds away from catching them. Mark turned suddenly and faced it. "Leary, use your shield again, but only around me." Her eyes widened. "No, if I do that, you will do it," he yelled. The creature lunged at Mark. Lir, I screamed and threw a shield around him. The creature's claws smashed into the shield just as the sun rose over the ridge. Golden light hit. The creature's back. It froze, then cracked, then screamed in pain. The creature staggered. Mark pushed forward with all his might, slamming his metal pole into its chest. Leary sent a final trembling burst of purple light. The creature lost balance. It fell backward off the ridge, down into a deep canyon, and the roar faded slowly. Into the morning light. Silence. Wind. Soft sun. Mark dropped the pole. Leary collapsed into his arms, exhausted and shaking. He held her tight. "It's over," he whispered. But Leary shook her head weakly. "No, Mark, this was only one hunter." She looked at the rising sun with tired, sad eyes. "My people are still missing." Mark tightened his grip around her shoulders. "Then we're going to find them," he said. "Together." The fight was won. But the journey was only beginning. The sun slowly climbed over the alien desert, spreading warm gold across the cold sand. After a night filled with fear, darkness, and danger, the morning light felt almost unreal. Mark and Leary sat together at the edge of the ridge, breathing hard, their clothes covered in dust and torn fabric. Below them, far down in the canyon, the night-stalker's body lay still. For the first time since meeting Leary, Mark felt a small, fragile sense of peace, but Leary did not. She sat curled beside him, hugging her knees, staring at the horizon with heavy, tired eyes. Her glowing symbols were dim again, barely visible under the sunlight. Her strength was fading after using so much power during the fight. Mark placed a hand on her back. "You did it," he said softly. "We survived." Leary nodded slowly, but her voice was small. "Yes, but my heart does not feel safe." She touched the metal cube in her lap. "Because my people, they are not home yet." Mark looked at the cube. "You said you escaped from a lab. Is that where they are?" She took a shaky breath. "Yes, the humans who took us. They kept us in cages. They said we were samples. They took our memory boxes. They took our family pieces." Her voice cracked. "I stole mine back when I ran." She pressed the cube gently. Soft light glowed from its corners. Mark sat up straighter. "Leary, what's inside?" Leary looked at him with sad, vulnerable eyes. "Everything." She tapped the cube twice. It opened slowly with a soft hum. A small hologram rose from inside, a bright blue image floating in the air. It showed a group of tiny alien children standing beside a tall woman with silver hair. The woman was smiling with gentle eyes. The children were laughing and holding hands. Leary's breath broke. My mother, my siblings, my home. Mark stared at the hologram with quiet respect. He understood now. This girl wasn't just surviving a night. She was carrying the weight of her entire world in her hands. Leary touched the floating image. Her fingers passed through it like mist. I want to see them again, she whispered. I want to go home. But I do not know the way. Mark thought for a moment. Then he pulled out his scanner device from his pack. Maybe we can find it. The cube must have coordinates, right? Some kind of location memory? Leary blinked. Coordinates, yes, but they are locked. Only family can open them. Mark smiled gently. Well, maybe family is not only by blood. She looked at him in surprise out then, as if the memory box heard Mark's words. The hologram changed out. The tall woman in the image turned her head. She looked right at Leary. She raised a hand to her chest. Leary gasped. She is giving me access sign. Mark held the scanner close. The cube glowed brighter. A series of symbols appeared on the screen. Coordinates, navigation lines, distance markers. Leary covered her mouth. Tears filled her glowing eyes. You can find them, Mark said, his voice deep and steady. We can find them. Leary hugged the cube tightly. Mark, why are you helping me so much? Her voice trembled. I am only a small alien girl. You could have left me outside when you heard the footsteps. Mark shook his head. I didn't save you because you're an alien. I saved you because you were alone, scared, freezing, and because you're good. He paused. And you trusted me. Leary wiped her tears. She looked at Mark with a deep, soft expression he had never seen before. Then she said something. In her language, a gentle whisper. A word full of emotion. Mark frowned. What does that mean? Leary touched his hand. It means, you feel like home. The words hit him harder than the cold wind ever could. A small smile formed on Leary's lips. I choose you, Mark, to help me, to guide me, to take me to my family. Mark stood, offering his hand. Then let's go find them. Leary placed her tiny hand in his. For the first time since escaping the lab, she stood with hope instead of fear. Together, they walked away from the ruined tent, the canyon, and the painful night behind them, stepping into the bright new morning of a journey that had only just begun.